Godox workshop. So Mr. Chong is sharing some very interesting model shooting and accessory for you, for us. Okay, please welcome Mr. Chong.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Wei Tatt. I'm a full-time photographer. So I think my talk today is going to be a bit different. I'm not going to show travel. I'm not going to show exotic places. I'm not going to show beautiful women in impossible positions and situations. I'm going to share my experience as a commercial event photographer. Yeah, and the photos that I'm showing you are going to be real photos that I take in the course of my work. So I'm the founder of a KL Photographer. KL Photographer is a company. Hi, Farid. It's a company that I started about 5 years ago, and basically I abandoned my career in IT to take up photography full time. So I would say after 5 years, I'm very happy that I made that decision. It doesn't pay as well, but I'm much happier as a person, and I get to network with a lot of people that are like-minded. My topic for today is Godox. Not that I'm an ambassador or anything. I just happen to use their products. And the reason I use Godox products is because out of practical considerations, I'm using Godox. Like many of you, how many commercial photographers, full-time photographers, we have a couple of full-time photographers, so you can sort of appreciate the journey we go through, right? And some of you might be hobbyists. And you might think of going into like full-time photography. Yeah? So I think if you have that inclination, I would strongly encourage it because it is very rewarding. Not monetarily, but that it's very enriching for the soul. Every day we go to work. Every day we feel good about what we're doing. And when I go back and see my wife, I'm happy. I don't feel that I've done a day of work. I'm actually like get excited to show her this is what I shot today, and the next day is something new. So that's my take on it. So in photography, when you start commercial photography, when you start, first thing you do is you don't have a lot of budget, so you spend very little. You buy the body that's sort of like okay, and then you buy a set of lenses that are practical. So in my case, I started with the Nikon D300, and then I had the 105 lens, which many of us started with about 5-6 years ago. In those days, that's sort of like the cheapest option you can get in for under $3,000 to actually get into event photography. And then we get you have to get a proper Nikon flash, and that's another $1,000 over. And then slowly, we start investing in strobe lights. So when we start, we know nothing about strobe lights. So we also don't want to go and spend like $20,000, $30,000 on a set on broad colors. So I started, with a set of lights that I bought from Digicolor. So, and I think many of you know that place before the days of like online and Lazada. So. And then after that, we graduated to better systems, before this I was using another top tier brand. And 3 years ago, I think, that the performance of that system was excellent for me. The color was accurate, it was fast, but whenever anything goes wrong with that system, it costs as much to repair than to buy a new one. So I think, and in those days, if you look at the Godox or a Yongnu or equivalent Chinese brand, the quality just isn't there. Like the feed is plastic. It feels plasticky. It feels, it feels tacky, and the thing doesn't come with a lot of features. For example, you won't find a flash 3 years ago that comes with a full TTL for Nikon as well as Canon. You won't find high-speed sync. You won't find like any control for color temperature. But nowadays, like if you find any Godox flash, I think is comparable, with most of the top-tier brands that you would be using. Next. This is the topic, but please make it interactive. I don't want this to be a session where I talk, you sit down, and then an hour later, you go off and do not. I don't address the things that are of concern to you. Right? And I'm giving this talk in English, but I can speak Mandarin as well, but slowly. Okay. So that's me, KL photographer. I do event photography. I do quite a number of corporate profiles, and I do focus a bit on food photography. So you find in photography, most of us start off doing wedding because that's the easiest gigs to get, because we know people who are getting married. But once you come to my age, I think that becomes a bit more challenging. So I'm doing mainly corporate work, and then I'm doing work that corporate works like events. I do launches, I do dinners, I do seminars. So this is I'm just showing this picture because I shot this picture last year. And again, I used a Godox flash for this. Yeah, and then 7200, this guy, is the president of Korea, so imagine he's quite far away. So we shot this with, I shot it to the teleconverter with the 7200. So I think I must have been about 300 mm by the time I applied the teleconversion. So the high ISO, but how do you get light on the person when he's standing so far away and there's actually an LED behind him? So that's actually one of the challenges you start learning to overcome as an event photographer. You cannot use a diffuser, you cannot use a bounce card, but at the same time you want to shoot it such a way that he doesn't look too harsh, and you still preserve skin tone, and you don't completely burn out that camera that's right next to the person. So these are skills that you learn as an event photographer. So photos like that might seem quite common, but to take them actually requires a bit of experience. Okay, this is another photo that I took. Obviously KLCC in the background, and again you can see it's I used two sets of soft boxes similar to this, right and left, at full power, and it's actually backlight. It's a backlit condition, so you can imagine when you gather so many people in the sun, backlight, it's not, you have very little time to do this. You set it up, you set up the trigger, you got your camera, you shout at them, 1, 2, 3, you take 10 shots, and that's it. Yeah. This is a shot that was taken at CIMB for obviously a Chinese New Year gig. So again, if you look at the shot, I used one of these soft boxes to light this. The background slightly underexposed so that the subject is isolated. And again, like a single soft box, and you get the nice shadow effect, without the person looking too much like a horror drama movie. Yeah. Again, sometimes we do work like this, shooting teams. Teams like this are quite straightforward once you set it up. But it's important that you have a good set of lights because you want consistent exposure for every shot. So, the next group that comes in here might be a group of Africans. So skin tones will be completely different. I have to bump up the exposure slightly, but I have to, but I have to make sure that I should protect my highlights. So I found that my last set of events, I shot this with two octo boxes that are bigger than this, right and left with the 8600. So just to segue into Godox, if you are familiar with the products they have, can someone bring me an 8400? They have their sort of like a Speedlight series of like flashes, the V860s, and then they've just released one with a round head, a V1. So those are all battery operated event type strobes. Then they have something in between, which is the AD200. So the AD200 is quite common because it's a lot of wedding photographers, especially pre-wedding photographers, use it. It's small, it's compact, it fits in the bag, you know. But the thing is with the AD200 is the power is higher than almost double or what you get with a Speedlight, but almost, you know, when you compare to a proper like you know, strobe like this, you know, the power is much less. So key thing is when we buy a strobe, one of the most important considerations is the mount. Like this comes with the Bowen mount. And the Bowen mount is something that comes standard with Godox strobe, which I find is very good because, you know, like it's most of the stuff that you get out in the market would be Bowen mounted. And if I were to buy a softbox today, I'll buy Godox softboxes because the color temperature and the consistency in the color is if you use like one series of equipment is the same. So this is something that I think Godox came out with I think last year, you know. So at this price point, 3 years ago, I could, you know, like I could get like maybe 2 Digicolor lights, which has nothing, you know, no temperature control, no consistency in color, you know, no digital like power setting, no high speed sync, no TTL. This comes with TTL, comes with high speed sync, comes with you know, like comes with modeling light, you know, comes with a full TTL feature with a direct conversion to a manual. And then, you know, like the good thing about this is, you know, you look at the parts, the bulb is the one that most likely will fail in a strobe. So you look at this strobe, it's got a detachable bulb. So I know that if this burns, it's no big deal. I just go and buy another one. In the past, if the bulb burns, you know, then I throw over the whole thing, you know, because it costs more to repair the thing than to actually try and get a new one. And the other good thing about this thing is it's completely half the time, my tablet is setting up table. I'm not very mobile, so that's a challenge for me. Nowadays, I set it up, I put it up, I can shoot one whole graduation event with one set of batteries. One whole set of, I can do a graduation event with one set of batteries. I mean, I just manage my ISO to make sure that I balance my power usage against my you know, power consumption. So this is a AD400. What I have mounted is up there is an AD600. I would suggest if you are seriously considering, if you're a hobbyist, you want to get into like studio photography, get an AD400. If you're doing any commercial work where you need to shoot fast and you need to be able to have the you know, you need to have to be the capacity to be able to shoot for a long time, suggest you go for AD600. The price difference, I think, if you are doing this on a cari makan basis, it's quite straightforward. I'll go straight for AD600. I still have an AD400 because I started with this and then I bought the AD600 straight away because I had another job that required the performance. But nowadays, whenever by default I will take out my AD600 because it's not that much bigger, but it performs so much better. So again, you know, what can you do with soft boxes? You know, you can do, you know, like a big group like that. You know, we get very sort of a dramatic lighting by making sure that the soft boxes are very far to the corners, yeah, and getting, you know, and getting more dramatic lighting so that, you know, we show this kitchen in like a bit more of like a Game of Thrones kind of like setting. So that's a bit of like fun aside. I mean, this is how I typically set up my shoots. You know, I have a model, I have the light, I always feed it to a computer, and that's important because like if you are shooting, if you're doing any studio work, there's no way you can see the results on a 4-inch screen behind a camera. Yeah. So it's very important to have it tethered because once it's tethered, you can see the effects, you can see your parameters, you can see your, you know, you put it in Lightroom, you can see your, you know, you can see your histogram, you know, you're very confident that you're shooting a very well, you know, like technically correct image. So again, some, you know, just some different shots, just to show. Now this is a photo that I just took last week, yeah, of a family. Again, you know, we did this session, we had about half an hour to take this. You know, all I set up is like two 80-600 lights right and left. I use the largest octobox I can get, P120, yeah. And then you see I've got some headlight there. Headlight, I had a 1x4 at the top. And basically, you know, we shot this, you know, and when the lights are set correct, you focus on shooting, you know. You don't focus, you don't have to think about, do I need more power there, do I need more backlight? Once you set your confident light, all I do is I just shoot the couple, I just shoot the family. So and then when I can have my attention purely on the portraiture and the family and how people are placing their hands, how people are looking, how people are sitting, how people are composed, you know, obviously the results are better. You know, I don't have to, you know, I don't have to like scratch my head and trying to like challenge myself technically. Now, how do I set this light? Why the color is changing? Why the flash is not triggering? You know, why? You know, what power do I have on my headlight? You know, it's all within my control because I have a Godox trigger that can control every single family of Godox Speedlights as well as Strobes. Now this is another shoot that I did. This was more a fun shoot. So when I bought the 8600, I wanted to take it out. So I went out with markers from a White Owl camera, and we had a couple of. And if you know, this is the River of Life. So this was after dark, and you look at this shot here. For me, I'm not a person that uses a light meter, you know. And because you are in a very open, dynamic sort of environment, you don't really have time to go and mess around with lights. You set it up, models stand there, people are walking around. The moment they clear, set it to TTL, I'm shooting. Yeah? So the only decision I have to make is like, what ISO am I going to shoot it? Obviously, I'm going to shoot this, you know, quite wide open to get the bokeh at the back, right? And then ISO-wise, you know, am I shooting at ISO 400? Am I shooting at ISO 800 or 1006? And basically, that's artistic, you know, consideration because you decide that based on how much of the ambient light you want to bring in. Yeah. As far as the lighting on the model is, that's all taken care by the TTL within the strobes. I don't have to worry technically about what light setting I need to set on my strobes. So you find whenever I shoot with my strobes, if it's something that I need to do very quickly, I just default to TTL. I don't use manual, you know, power because I don't have to go and like mess around with it. Now this shot is, I'm showing this shot because you see our boss here from Godox, Nelson, he's right in the middle of that shot there. Now this shot won second place at the photo competition in Seremban, Sendayan. So again, you know, like I think we it was a very interesting competition. The theme of the competition was called Togetherness. Yeah. So, and they opened to everybody for 2 days. So I thought, how do you make this shot special or different? Because everybody has a handphone, everybody's going to bring a camera, everybody's going to have access to this space. So basically, we got a couple of friends, and then we set up like two AD600s, and then we took a low angle shot to make sure that the ang-paos that we threw up, get lit and they stand out there. And this shot, quite fortunately won the second prize in that competition. So just a recap, the strobes that I'm not going to talk so much about the smaller event, the speedlights, because I think I'm going to be covering the V1 tomorrow at 3 p.m. Yeah, so that's a session I'm going to talk about how I use the V1. But basically, the V860, whenever I shoot events, that's my go-to light. I use that most of the time. I have a V1 as well, but I use that a bit less because it's more specialized in its usage. These two lights, the AD400 and the AD600, I use almost, every other day within my studio. If I need to shoot food, if I need to shoot people, if I need to shoot groups, if I need to shoot fashion, if I need to shoot products, these are my go-to lights. Yeah. So let me. Okay, I'm going to have Priscilla here. She's going to be assisting me today. So tell you, I'm going to start with just a single softbox. Normally, I will shoot with the bigger softbox. I'll go with the P120. But for the sake of this shoot, I'm just going to use something a bit more, small. What's the choice of softbox? Whenever you have option, use the biggest softbox that you can manage. Yeah. Obviously, you get better light. The bigger the light source, the softer the light is, the better the result is going to be. But if you try to take a P120 out on a rainy day in Sekinjang, it's like a parachute and you fly with it. Yeah. So it's a challenge. So basically, we are indoors. So basically, we can use the largest softbox available to us. This P90 is not the largest by far, but it's for the sake of what I'm doing, I'm taking more like a close-up shot. So I think this should suffice. Okay. While I am here, I myself talk a bit about the X2T. I just bought this yesterday because I know it's been out for a while. I had the X1T before this, and this is the X2T. In terms of prices, it's obviously a bit more expensive. But is it worth it? I would think so, because A is it's got all the ABC group buttons on the transmitter itself. So in the past, they tried to save money by putting a little dial on the side. So whenever I need to choose my grouping, it's like I got to scroll, I got to look, I got to make sure that in the right mode, and then I start changing the dial. So it was very frustrating. Whereas with this one, I immediately A, B, C, D, E, I'm changing my mode. I pick A, I can change it to the TTL manual, I can change my power, I can change my exposure. The other feature that this thing has, which I haven't tried out yet, is supposed to be able to pair with my phone via Bluetooth. So technically, I can download the software and then use my phone and trigger this strobe and get, if you got a very good, P30 Pro, whatever, your images might be, just as good as my, P5 here. Okay, so I'm guessing here. going up. That image and you'll see. So this one is only thing I set is my ISO here. I set ISO 1200, right? Put it on TTL and adjusted the compensation in class 0.3 and adjusted to so that's all. So to do studio photography is not difficult. And basically, if I can get a shot like this, you know, like with the live camera, just with the detail, everybody can do this. So basically, what I want to do now is, okay, maybe I just want to bring up the skin tone a bit. That 0.3 compensation. Okay, so I bring it up again. Basically, I just like compensated the 0.3 of the slot and then I so that's all I do. No light meter, you know, I think I'll spend 5 minutes trying to figure out what cameras I think I want to use. You know, and basically now it's a question of how I want to shoot this. You know, this one I shot, you know, like Priscilla is very split. So like you know, maybe this kind of lighting for her makes her look very even thinner than she used to be. So what I need to do is maybe I bring up the lighting to get the thing broader. So I bring it forward a bit more. Look at the next image. See the difference? I just need a slight difference. I just move the light more because of the front. So she looks really daisy because she's got the center there. And this is not right or wrong. For some women, you know, if their face is a bit bothered, you might not just have a check because you want to bring the face out by creating a sharper shadow. But in this case, it's similar to the pattern. I still have the graduation in the light, you know, on the right side of the face. But you don't get it. You know, the face now is evenly light and shadow, but you know, I see a bit more of the detail on the right side of the face. And basically, this is all I play with lighting. So if I set up the lighting like that, you know, then I find it really dramatic, I move it to the front, then I get this. If I want a bit more fill there, then I might put the reflector just to reflect a bit more light under the chin. But basically, these are all, there's no right or wrong. It's all your own artistic interpretation of what you want to do. If you want to have a very dramatic photo of a boxer, then you want very harsh shadows everywhere. You know, if you're taking a beauty shot, then you want to have, you know, depending whether you're doing for SKP commercial or whether you're doing, you know, for a Malay wedding, you know, like popular you would adjust the lighting differently. So if I look at this, it's okay. What's missing? What's missing here? Hairlight, okay? Only thing I need to add in is the hairlight because you know, Priscilla's a very nice black hair here, but if I have a dark background or this background is really dark, the hair is not standing out. You know, so maybe I just add the hairlight in there. So this is where again the strokes help me. I have this as channel 21 group A. I'm going to set this up as group B. And because it's a backlight, I want to control the amount of backlight I want. So what I do is I don't want to shoot PGL because I don't want the camera to try to figure out what the exposure of the back of the head should be. So let me get this right. So I press E, I change it to manual, and then maybe a good starting point. So always 180. With the stroke, a good starting point 116, 180 is a good starting point. Because at that point you can either dial it up or dial it back down. So usually that's my default. If I don't know what setting I need to put at the back, a bit higher. Priscilla's higher, taller. And to see this better, what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch off my main light first. So I do go A. Off. In the past, I would walk there, switch it off, walk back here, but now I know it's all done on my trigger. So the only light that should trigger is the back right here. Triggering, right? What I want it a bit closer. You bring the light a bit closer. Going down. But for the backlight, I wouldn't just use a softbox. I use a softbox with the grid. Yeah? The reason you have the grid is so that you don't want the light to be spinning everywhere. Yeah? Ideally, you want the light to just hit the back of the head. And you don't want it to spill over the shoulder side of the face, you know, like, and then you get the ugly, you know, like, highlights on the side of the face. So I look at this, can you all see the result? That's what I want to do. I'm going to try again. Now I'm going to turn on both my lights. So what I'm shooting TTL on this, I'm shooting manual on the back. So this is the final result I get. See how I detail the back. Not just black, detail in there. So once I detail the hair, when it comes to editing, I can bring it out, I can highlight it, you know, I can adjust the color, you know. I can age it out, so there's a lot of things I can do once I do that. So this is my basic lighting setup for single property house. And it's never been so easy for me. In the past, you know, I walk, I forget to walk. I walk there, go up, set the thing, bring it down, come back, shoot again. Nowadays, you know, I just reset my life, my confidence, everything is outside. So I'm just going to do a few more shots with the prisoner here. You can ask some questions and then maybe you have the question. Once I got my lighting set up, I just focus on it. And with one line, you can get a lot of different things. Any questions? Okay, question from this gentleman is, if I only have an 860 here, how would I get this kind of result? Okay, so let's try that. Can you take the so this gentleman is testing my putting me on the spot here. I got to be able to take a shot and get a similar kind of effect here. Now, okay, I need to cheat a bit, okay? Firstly, I don't have as much light. I need to bump my ISO up. But when I bump my ISO up, the background will come into play as well. So I have to balance it. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to get model to stand closer, away from the background. I'm closer to my light, right? Second thing I'm going to do is this. It's difficult to bounce on gray. So if I try to bounce from that side onto the face, I'm going to lose a lot of light. I'm going to bounce against it, right? So I'm going to ask the shooter to turn around to the other side. Then I'll do a bounce. When you're going to bounce your light, you want to set your zoom to maximum. I'm setting my zoom to 200 so that I got one spot of light here. You know one thing when you're using the flash, it's like you think where you go put your softbox. If I want to have like a light coming on to the broad side of the face here, then I'm thinking my softbox should be somewhere down there. Okay. So if I shoot this, then you know my flash should be somewhere up there. Then part up there will have a bright spot which will reflect onto like the prisoner's face. So moment of truth here. I'm not sure whether there's enough power yet, so let's try it. Look at the result. Right? So I still have that variation. You know, like I bump up my ISO, then it's still a noisy. Not quite studio quality, but still acceptable. If I'm shooting an event, I'm shooting a graduate, I'm shooting a model, you know, this is the only thing you have, this is what I'm doing. So, it's not bad, right? Okay. So, let me show you one other thing. How can I improve on that? Now, whenever you use a flasher, you know there's a lot of spill. You think everything is going up there, right? 70% is going up there.
maybe 5 or 10% is going forward. So no matter how I take this, right, there's going to be a spill. So some of the light that's coming on the face is not from the shadow, it's actually a direct spill. So you cheat again. You don't want spill, then you don't reflect it. So now I'm getting a light that's purely bounced from the back, no spill at all to the front. And the beauty of this is that if I want to do something actually more dramatic, I want to bounce it closer to the face, so I can move it forward. I bounce it somewhere from the back here. But I don't want it to spill on the face, so I do this. So you see the shadow on that side. And again, I'm not using stroke. Now I've got another. If you're shooting this kind of scenario, I've got another weapon. For another 10 minutes, so I'm going to do this and you'll wrap it up. This is the V1. For this shot, why? Because I prefer this over that. I'll show you. Because the V1 comes in a bag of tricks and you have to purchase separately. But it's worth it though, you know. So remember, I had to hold the card up just now. Sorry about this one. Okay. I'm doing the same thing. Now look at this here. This is a magnetic sticks here. I don't like to spill on the face, so I pop the face. Right? I bounce it straight, I want to bounce forward. I'm quite close. If you use the normal flash, the face is forward. Right? You see this? Any other questions? I think this is probably the last question. If I want it to be more directional, I stick on the honeycomb. Then I get very directed light. I get no spill. And I get, you know, my light is not spreading all over there, it's just going right up there. I don't know whether you can see it, but on my screen I can definitely see the difference. You see, look at that shadow. All I had to do is modify it. I'll show you without the modifier. Okay? This is normally the result that you'll get without modifier. top that, when you see, start seeing all this hot spot on the face. It's very subtle. And then the shadow here, that's the little bit of blue on the side of the face. So, if you are doing, you want to get the speed light, you plan to do some portraiture work, get a new one. If you're doing making events, get a V860. And why do I say that? Because shooting event, this is much bigger, right? And you know, but it does have an advantage. If you're shooting event, you can do this with this. Not with that. I can even carry this way. It's very handy. Or if I'm shooting a big group, I'm shooting a big group, like a wide angle lens. And here, right? You know, I want to bounce. This lens is really bouncing in the back. Really, I got the back bounce, I think I have the direct bounce on the top. So I think that's all the time I have. I'm doing another session tomorrow on this particular one. So if you're interested, 3 p.m. I think I will come an hour, 3 p.m. to 3:30. But if there are no more questions, then for that. Thank you.